Hi folks, this is going to be a quick circle check on a bulldozer for you. Now I am going to do some of the things relatively quickly and not spend too much time on it, so it'll be a full circle check. You will notice this is a John Deere 450 and it does not have doors or windows, so some of the things will be left out, but I'll mention them anyway. So we'll get started. I apologize for the quality of the video. I'll do my best to point at everything we're going to be looking at. So to start off, as we walk up towards the machine, we're going to give it a little bit of a looking over and seeing if there's any puddles or liquid underneath it, to make sure that there isn't a leak that sat overnight and that fluid's drained out of the machine. So as I walk around it, I'm going to look underneath this side. Oh, sorry, I'm learning how to use my camera. Take a quick look. I don't see anything of concern, and I don't see any wet spots or anything oozing out. So as I go around, I'm going to keep looking at everything. So at this stage, I'm comfortable that there hasn't been a huge leak or anything has come out of the machine as we're going. So now I'm going to start looking into the engine compartment. On this particular machine, there's only one access panel into the engine compartment on the side. So I'm going to open this up. And this is where I'm going to start to look at my fluids and my engine condition. So to start off, our most important fluid always is the oil dipstick. It's down here on this one. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to wipe it. Then I'm going to reinsert it. Make sure it sits properly in its holder. Pull it back out, and I'm going to check the oil level. In this case, I'm looking at it. It might be hard for you to see, but it looks like it needs a little bit, but nothing to be too concerned about. While I'm in this position, I'm going to look at the rest of the engine area. I'm going to look at all the wiring, the fuel water separators. I'm going to look to see if there's any noticeable wet spots that shouldn't be there. You may notice a little bit of dirt and goo around the oil fill. This is the oil fill here, but that's normal. There's some slight leakage when people add it in, and it's hard to clean. On this particular machine, then I'm going to look at the belts and cables. My belt here looks pretty good. I don't see any cracks or any damage on it. I look in at the fan shroud. I will notice right up here there's a little bit of damage to this plastic piece. Those won't affect performance. It probably just vibrated and broke off. So I look at all my hoses, my wiring. Again, I'm doing this a bit quickly. And while I'm here, I'm looking at my air filter. So I'm going to squeeze this to let out any excess dirt. There will also be an indicator on the dash if that gets too full. Being satisfied that the engine compartment looks pretty good from this side, there's one other thing to see, and that is the coolant. Now the coolant tank up here, it has gotten a little opaque with age, so it's hard to see if the coolant is correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up top, open that compartment, and look down into it. So that's the next step. But I don't need to do that while I'm on the ground. It'll be last before I start the machine up. So I'm going to close this, make sure it's secured. While I'm here, I do notice that there's a bolt missing right here. That should be there. You'll see that there's one above it, and this one is missing, so we'll have to get that replaced. Otherwise, this will vibrate like crazy and possibly cause damage. Again, still working on fluids. I'm going to go into this side panel on this machine, and I'm going to look at what's in here. These are all the hydraulic hoses and attachments, and then there is a fuel water separator. Here's the fuel water separator. You can see on this one it has a bowl, and it looks like it's pretty clean. I don't see any noticeable dirt or water in there. Having said that, I'll send you a picture of one that isn't. Then while I'm in here, I'm going to look at this gauge, and this is my hydraulic fluid gauge. So as you can see, it's pretty much perfect. It's right between the high and the low. Again, on each machine, it might be in a different spot. But on this one, it's on this gauge. And then, so this compartment looks pretty good. I don't see anything to be. and I'll continue. Sorry for that pause. So I don't see anything to be concerned about. Nothing's leaking. Everything looks pretty clean. So I'm good in this compartment. As I walk by, I can see where the hydraulic fluid fill is. It looks clean and in decent condition. So away we go. As I walk around the back, I can see where the fuel cap is. I make sure that it is secure and that it's not gone, missing, or loose. Then I'm going to go around on this side and I'm going to open this side compartment here. On this side compartment, I have some more filters and I have the battery compartment and the electrical. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my master switch is on this particular one. And then this machine also has another gauge on the back here. And this is the transmission gauge. All right. Sight glass is actually the right term. Again, it's fine. It's between the add and high. So we're right in where we need to be. It doesn't have to be exactly in the center. It's just in that area. Note, some machines, or a lot of machines actually, will not have a transmission gauge or sight, and the reason being it's all run on the same hydraulic fluid. So for example, a Cat D3K2 will not have this one. It'll just have the hydraulic fluid. Again, looking in this compartment, I'm making sure everything looks good. All my wiring is connected. There's nothing hanging loose. And then probably once a week, I will take this cover off and check to see if the battery cables are tight. If a machine doesn't have this cover on it, then you can just check them daily, and all that involves is just wiggling them to make sure they're tight and not loose at all. If they are loose, I would just unclamp them and then clamp them back on. This will cause battery drain if they're left loose. So that's good. There's the fill for that transmission. So now I'm ready to climb up into the machine and get it going. So I will comment that I'm not going to start the machine. I'm just going to fake it so that it doesn't get too noisy for us. So on this particular machine, all the gauges are up front due to the fact that it doesn't have a cab, so there's nothing above us or around us. So the first thing I'm going to do, I put my key in, I turn the key, and I let the computer fire up. Once everything is set and it's all been initiated, I can look. I can see that my gauges are all lit up red before the engine starts. This is perfectly normal, including the battery gauge. Until the engine starts, it's going to show. And then I can see my gauges, my fuel, in this case, my oil pressure. Of course, it's going to be 0 because the engine isn't running. And then I can see my temperature for my coolant. There'll be other gauges and other indicators on different types of machines, so we want to make sure that we know our machine when we're doing it. On this side is our buttons for our lights, our fan. This machine, although it doesn't have a cab, still has a fan near your feet that can heat your feet a little bit. And on this side we have our starting age, and then this is a setting for our track speed. So as I look at this, everything looks good and I am good to start it. I'll start it for a second. Make sure everything is on normally. Okay, the battery light went off. The gauges are working. Now we do have oil pressure, which is normal, so we're all good here. Once I remove the parking brake, and then this light will go off too. I'm going to turn it off so we don't have to listen to the noise. But normally during this period is when I would check everything else while it's warming up. So in this case, while it's warming up, I could check to see if my hydraulic on the side here, if my transmission temperature is in good condition. If that light's on, that means it's too cold or too hot. I can look at my throttle, make sure it's at 0, and I can look at my controls and make sure they're working. If I put it into reverse, and this goes with, this would go with the keys on, and on our check, we would be talking about our audible alarms and backup beepers and horns. If I put it in reverse, You can hear the reverse. This one has a broadband beeper, but either way, it's the same thing. And then if I check my horn, I notice my horn is not working. So that's something that has to be fixed, resolved. It's a safety issue. We could still use the machine, but we'd have to make sure everybody around us knows that the horn is not currently working. And if we had dump trucks working with us, that would be an issue. My controls are all working properly. I'm checking my controls. The parking brake is on, so that's working properly, and that's all there is. And then on this side, again, if the machine was running, I would check my hydraulic flow. I could lift, drop, move back and forth and make sure everything's running. So now I'm going to get back off the machine and do the rest of my circle check. Having said that, we do want to remember that there's no cab in here. So while I'm in here, if I was in here, I would be turning on my lights. Here I did that. And I would be checking my windshield wipers and such. Anything that can only be checked by turning it on inside, this is the time to do it. And currently the machine is now warming up. So now while it's warming up, I'm going to get back off it and do the rest of my check. Let's remember that the machine is running at this moment. So now I can walk around and check the machine for any damage, any excessive wear, and if there's grease missing or any parts missing or anything like that. So I can look down in my undercarriage. This undercarriage looks pretty good. It is brand new, actually. So as you can see, I'll just zoom in here. Oh. On this undercarriage, we can see that everything is brand new. The sprocket is nice and blunt, not pointy, so that means it's new and not worn out. All the pins and bushings look like they look brand new. There's no wear on them and no odd wear, so that's normal. I can look down on my rollers. When you're looking at your rollers, you always want to make sure that there's no oil leaking out of them. That is one of the big issues, is that if there's oil leaking out of them, that means they could seize. There's nothing you can do about it. You'd have to tell your mechanic, which would then order a replacement. There's no refilling them with oil. I look at all my drive motor. I'm going to make sure those bolts are all tight and not looking like they're going to come out. And of course, again, looking for any leaks or any fluids that may be coming out. Generally, when you're looking at these, by hand, you're not going to be able to tell, but if they are coming loose, you'll see a shiny part there because the metal will wear itself. So we'll back off on the tracks. Now, one of the questions is always, what about track sag? To check the track sag, we would have to move the machine back and forth according to its operator's instructions. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So anyway, I'm going to keep looking at this. So I'm looking at all my cylinders, my pins, the welds, just to see if there's anything that looks like it's excessively worn or broken. Any holes. So something like this, that is just the cover. The cover is wearing out, but you can see the holes underneath it is still good. So that is fine. I'm looking at all these here. And then I can look at my blade. I'm looking to see if all the bolts are still in place, if there's any damage, any cracks. Minor dents are not an issue. That is kind of normal on a blade. It's nothing to be concerned about. So it's not even worth reporting. What we're looking for is something broken or bolts coming out, but a little bit of a dent. And I'll show you one on this side. Oh. Sorry, still working, learning my gimbal. So on this side, I think it's over here. Oh, maybe not. So anyway, minor dents are not a big issue. It's not something to be really concerned about. So not even worth reporting unless it's something very drastically noticeable. So I'll come around to this side and I would do the same thing on the tracks on this one. Now just visually the tracks look like they have sag, but as you can see on this particular machine, it tells you how to measure it in the instructions. You have to follow those instructions specifically. So in this case it says move the unit forward only, roll to a stop when track pin is centered over carrier roller, and then you can do the measurements. All right, so that's on this one. Some machines will have this on the side, some will be in the operator's manual. And If this was a machine with a cab, now's the time that I would start looking at the glass, the doors, the frame. We can see a little bit of rust up top. That is not an issue to worry about. Rust is normal, so you can see it up there. For any machine of any age, when the paint comes off, it starts rusting. We would be checking our lights in this case. Oh. Again, sorry, I'm learning this gimbal, so I'm trying to get it all figured out. So we'd be checking any lights, any damage, any cracked windows, door handles and such. Just an overall look at what the machine looks like. Here we have a small bit of damage. Something has struck that machine at some point. Obviously it didn't do any structural damage, so it's not a big worry. Just cosmetic damage, nothing to be worried about. This sticker being damaged a bit, again, not really something for a machine this age that you'd even mention on a circle check book. No fluids. So the last step, now that we'll pretend that it's warmed up, I've checked everything out, I've signed off all my books. The last step, of course, would be moving the machine around, stopping it, and then doing a measurement of the tracks. That would involve, very simply on this one, following those instructions, we would lay a board, some kind of straight edge from the front of the track to the center on top, and then we would measure down and see if it's within the tolerance that our operator's manual says. So that would be the last thing, and usually you do that after you've run the machine a little bit and got it going to loosen everything up so it hasn't been sitting. This actually, despite there being sag, looks like they're too tight. They will need to be loosened a little bit. That goes into maintenance, not a pre-op. So the final step is our book, and I'll just show you that quickly. I've pre-filled it out for you just so you can see what I've done. The engine needed some oil, coolant level was good, hydraulic oil level and hoses were good, transmission fluid level was good, belts and so forth. You'll notice here it says brakes, brake fluid. That's not applicable. Everything else is okay. There near the end I wrote down that the horn is not working. Steering and fluid, there's no steering fluid in this, so it's not applicable. Gauges, dash lights, they were all good, and the wiper, washer and blades, not applicable. At the very bottom, I'm going to fill out, here's my hours on the machine. They came off the computer on the front, the date, the machine number, and of course my signatures and where this machine is. And that's the whole thing. The one thing I forgot to show you, now that I think about it, is where to find the hydraulic, sorry, not the hydraulic, the rad fluid. As I said, it was opaque, hard to see. So the rad fluid is in here. I would open that up once I get up here before the engine is started, take the cap off, look inside. Of course, only do that if it's cold. If it's hot, we're not going to do that. You have to make sure that it's cold, otherwise there's a burn scalding issue. So we would take that off, look inside, see if it's at a decent level according to what the manual says and the marker on it, and to see if there's any floaters or anything, any refuse in there. Okay, close that up and away we go. So that's it, a simple circle check, quick and easy. Obviously this would be a lot quicker if I wasn't narrating it as I went. Thank you, and hopefully this helps. Let me know if there's anything else needed.